Star Fox has failed to come back to relevancy in its 30-year lifespan. That's right, we just passed the 30-year anniversary of a series that had so much potential in its early days after the success of the original and Star Fox 64. However, the constant experimentation and the juggling of the third-party studios completely derailed this franchise into obscurity. I wouldn't be surprised if many of the Fox and Falco mains of Smash Bros. Ultimate only knew those characters from the biggest crossover Nintendo has to offer. It's been almost 10 years since the latest installment, Star Fox Zero, had launched and became the biggest flop in the franchise's history. That felt like the final nail to one of the most depressing game coffins in history. Although, what if we bring the series back in a different way? I know, this is definitely an idea that comes out of left field. I've talked about something like this before, and it did receive a mixed perception. However, I do think that this series deserves an official animated project. My reasons are as follows. 1. The characters are iconic, regardless of their shady history. 2. Animated space series are very hard to come by. 3. Star Fox has immense storyline potential. 4. The series has been the most experimented on for Nintendo. And finally, there is one special case as to why I think it would work. I'm not going to deny that this franchise is polarizing for many reasons, but I assure you that these points that I'm going to go into will convince you that Star Fox should receive another shot at life in a different medium. But before we dive into it, let's talk about ExpressVPN, which is today's lovely sponsor. There are plenty of gremlins on the internet who would love to gain access to your data, so it's best to keep yourself secured from those pesky hackers. That's where ExpressVPN comes in to help you out. ExpressVPN is a virtual private network service that encrypts your internet connection and hides your IP address, making it more difficult for people to track what you're doing online. Let's not forget that the service gives you access to servers in 94 countries. This means you can access any website you want and not have to worry about limitations in bandwidth. If you have any issues, ExpressVPN has 24/7 customer service that are more than willing to help. Still have doubts? Well, I got you covered, because ExpressVPN is offering their service free of charge for 3 months if you sign up for their 1-year plan. Just use my link to gain access to this awesome deal. It will also be in the description below. Much love to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video. Now, if you decided to start a survey with many Star Fox fans and ask what do you remember the most about the franchise, most would say it's music and its characters. A lot of that, of course, is because of Star Fox 64. Not only because of the most iconic voice acting the game has to offer, but because it established every personality in a distinct and interesting way. Other companions of Star Fox like Super Mario and Legend of Zelda did not have that plethora of characters that interact with one another non-stop. Now, I'm not saying that Mario and Zelda are deprived of character, not by a long shot. However, Star Fox made it to be more than just about one character. While Fox is the focal point of the story, the ensemble also plays a distinct role in aiding you. Whether it's Peppy suggesting what moves to do,
use the brake,
or Slippy giving you the health bar of the boss,
enemy shield analyzed,
or even Falco taking out some enemies for you.
I found the target, try to keep up.
Adding to that is how each of these assists matches their respective personalities. This is just the main crew as well. Star Wolf also has a mix of characters that are distinct and have plenty of history between both squads. Let's not forget General Pepper and Andros that play distinct roles as well. I would even say Star Fox was a staple in establishing and developing a big cast of characters. This gives Star Fox a smooth transition to an animated format. There are plenty of animated series that have many interesting characters that interact with one another. One of the make or breaks for any new series coming out will have to be how the characters of a series trying to break in to distinct themselves from their counterparts that have already established their seat at the table. Star Fox does not have to worry about that as much, considering what Star Fox has brought to the gaming industry. So it's up to Nintendo to expand on the characters more in a way that increases their intrigue even more so than before. I might be the only one to believe this, but the space genre is severely underused in the animation industry as a whole. Now, obviously, we have had some significant shows that many would recognize from the genre, like Steven Universe and Rick and Morty as recent examples. However, outside of those two, there hasn't been a show that can capture the magic those two had in recent years. What I believe helped those shows is the way they were able to set up their stories respectively. With Steven Universe, they broke a lot of boundaries when it comes to representation, while for Rick and Morty, they thrive on stretching the multiverse concept to its limit. Can Star Fox dive into those bags to garner intrigue if they do go the animated route? I would say so. However, there's definitely more Star Fox can play around with to have people interested. Star Fox can really explore the depths of the Lilat system, as well as dive into the military aspect within a space setting. Whether starting out at Fox's Academy days to implement how the Star Command operates in preparing their soldiers and setting up their squadrons, not to mention being able to show the atmosphere each planet has to offer, as I do believe that is something that is rarely touched on within the series itself. For a very long time, we have had other genres like fantasy, superheroes, and slice of life take control a majority of animated content in Western media. So I think it's time for us to add a little more variety within the current pool of animated series with a pinch of more sci-fi. You cannot tell me that Star Fox won't be able to fit that bill, especially for those focusing towards a younger audience. It has a colorful cast of characters as mentioned prior, and they also have a plethora of cool vehicles and equipment they can install from what they have stored in their previous games. Someone needs to have sci-fi being more of a mainstay. So why not have one of Nintendo's lost franchises give it a whirl? So when it comes to one of Star Fox's glaring issues as a franchise, I think one of the biggest ones is the story it attempts to present. Considering that they have had multiple studios that place their paws on this franchise, to say it has a cohesive storyline is completely laughable at best. A majority of its developments in recent years has come from Adventures, Assault, and Command, and they've all been very mixed when it comes to the quality each of the stories had presented. So for its most recent games in Star Fox 64 3D and Star Fox Zero, they mainly relied on the same story that thrived in the 64 days. However, the problem is that they didn't add more detail to that storyline, or worse, gave a diet version of the original story to focus on the gimmick the current console had at the time. So with that in mind, would Star Fox fans be interested in seeing another version of that storyline again? I mean, it really depends if I'm honest. Though I do think an animated series can go beyond just relying on the Star Fox 64 story once again. While I do think it is the best story of its history by far, I do believe that Star Fox can rely on some of that story and expand it even more. I would love to dive into how James McCloud's legacy could put pressure on Fox. Perhaps they could expand on the relationship between Fox and Wolf. Heck, let's find out the reason why Andros was exiled in the first place. There's a lot in the story to be played around with here to make Star Fox an intriguing candidate to be the next gaming franchise to dive into animation. How deep they want to dive into this universe honestly depends on if they want to make a series or a movie. Right now, it's more likely they'll go the movie route considering they have the Mario movie, but of course that's mainly wishful thinking because I doubt that Illumination would go from a guarantee in the Mario franchise to a huge risk in Star Fox. Only time will tell if the two companies would expand to other franchises. If they do, I expect Star Fox to be a bit lower on the list. Still, the potentials are still there for the franchise story-wise, and I do believe it would be worth it in the long run in reviving what is considered to be dead. Okay, yes, I get it. When talking about Star Fox and its experimental choices, a majority of those choices have flopped tremendously. Whether we talk about the Zelda-like train wrecking adventures, or that weird third-person shooter aspect in Assault, or the dreaded reliance on the gamepad screen in Zero. Star Fox has a long list of L's in that department, to the point where I say, what else do they have to lose in trying one more experiment in the animation scene? Nintendo has often used Star Fox as its gambling chip to try different things to make it stand out on its own. While most of the time it comes back to bite the company's rear, you can't help but be admired by the aspirations in trying to mix things up with the franchise. With how their track record has been when it comes to their game development, trying a different approach where you don't have to rely on that and focus on other aspects that make Star Fox recognizable to many could be the best play to test the waters on how fans really feel about the franchise as a whole. Not to mention they already have a sample of an animated project in the Star Fox Zero short in The Battle Begins, a 15-minute animation that was used to promote Zero. That video has over 4 million views in total, and around 59,000 likes on Nintendo of America's channel. It caught a lot of people's attention at the time, and for good reason. There was a lot of charm and charisma oozing out of it with the diverse characters, amazing action sequences, and of course, my personal favorite, seed planting. While the actual game definitely did not match the quality in the short on its own was praised unanimously, and many fans, even today, wish for Zero to have its own show, much like Sonic had with Boo. The interest of having an animated series or movie is still there. And with the tools I have mentioned earlier, Star Fox can easily take that bargain of experimentation and really dive into the system, the characters, and of course, the story. As a matter of fact, there is one other project that really emphasizes why I believe this route is the perfect one to take for Star Fox. Especially if they give someone that is extremely passionate about the franchise a chance to expand on the lore. If there is anything that could cause a spark in considering Star Fox for the animation scene, you could look no further than the fan-animated YouTube series of Fox in Space. A fan parody that dives into that universe in a darker tone. In a way, it reminds me of a slower-paced Cowboy Bebop, although the show mainly focuses on fleshing out the personalities we know and love, and have a lot less action sequences admittedly. Even with that, they emphasize the dynamics they have with each other and are supported heavily with the fantastic writing. They also dedicate the history of the previous Star Fox Squadron and gave Fox's father, James, a much needed in-depth look at who he is as a character. The creator, Matthew Gafford, did a large percent of the work you see in the 2 episodes that are released currently. He voiced a large percent of the characters. The animation in episode 1 was done by him, and he had 2 other assistants to aid him in episode 2. He even created a majority of the score used within the series. The dude went above and beyond when making this fan series for the franchise, and you can tell how much love was put into it every second. The amount of references to the original games are definitely present, and those who have been fans of the series for a very long time could catch them. Like the reference to the iconic commercial for Star Fox 64, or the rumor of the Cornerian soldiers replacing their legs with robotic ones, or even the terrible gimbaled mechanic.
My man.
Not to mention how a lot of his 3D models resemble a lot of the original version of Star Fox. This series is definitely a love story to the franchise that was completely mishandled by Nintendo time and time again. A Fox in Space fills that void a majority of Star Fox fans crave. Although I do believe if Nintendo is willing to dip this series to be fully animated, I don't expect them to follow the same tone shown in Gafford's version of the storyline. I do hope to see some implements of how the personalities are when it comes to character dynamics. Though when it comes to overall tone and atmosphere, I do believe that most of that would be taken from the Zero short that was created almost a decade ago. With that being said, I for one am all for Nintendo taking a nosedive with Star Fox and giving it another chance with an animated project, whether it be a series or even a movie. Because furries shouldn't be the only thing keeping Star Fox alive, Nintendo.